So, from Forbes.com, the article is Nintendo Switch's best secret is being obsolete. So, once again, article will be below. And the long and short of it is, Nintendo is finding all the success with the Switch because they're keeping it simpler and they're not trying to compete now with the other companies and trying to do what they do. They're basically fully doing their own thing, even though it's getting some, games ported to it because of how successful it is. But for the most part, it have its own gimmick. It has its own games. I am assuming you just got killed. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so it's doing its own thing. It's keeping it cheap. And these other companies making all these AAA games for these super powerful consoles, they're not making the money back that they would be, because they have to put so much money out into these AAA games to really push the hardware. So it's almost a law of diminishing returns on that end, whereas the Switch has a purposefully underpowered system, but it's portable. You have a real full gaming console in your hands, which it's kind of cool when you play it because it's like, wow, I'm playing actual Xbox One games on this little tablet almost. And that's really the success behind it. By being obsolete, they're raking in the money. It's already outsold the Wii U in the 5 years that was out.
Well, number one, the Wii U is a piece of shit. So, now, this article, the biggest issue I have with this article is the Switch wasn't the console where Nintendo decided being obsolete was the way to go. They've kind of always been obsolete to a degree.
True.
Because that's... Except for the Super Nintendo... I feel like the Super Nintendo, maybe the GameCube, were the only ones where they were, quote-unquote, attempting to compete with, Sony or, whoever at the time, Sega. N64, I don't think was truly trying to compete, graphically. Certainly wasn't trying to do it sound-wise. But GameCube, tried a little bit, and in some games it actually succeeded better than... the PlayStation 1, but definitely couldn't go PlayStation 2.
It was actually more powerful than PS2. It was just the mini discs that kind of hamstrung it a little bit.
Yeah. So, but basically since then, even the Wii, the Wii wasn't trying to compete in terms of output of how it looks. It just was the gimmick of the controller. But the games felt and looked dated as all hell, but no one cared because when you buy Nintendo, you're trying to buy first-person or first-party games. You're not buying it for a competition with Xbox and PS and PlayStation. So I just don't like the fact that it's making it sound like the Switch is a unique system, that they finally cracked the code on it. What I will say is, I think they're giving Nintendo a little too much credit. I mean, I'm sure if Nintendo could get completely up to current gen, they would. They certainly have enough funding. I think they just know their bread and butter, as I said, is they're going to be the first-person titles. If they didn't release a Mario and a Zelda game the same year that the Switch came out, I don't think these numbers even do a quarter of what they did. Especially with, the Zelda game coming out as a whatchamacallit?
Launch title.
Yeah. My brain's not working right now. But if that didn't happen, I don't think you see, like I said, the numbers aren't even comparable. So you got to realize, you're buying those properties. You don't really care about the system. So that's my only thing. Nintendo will always be viable and always make a shit ton of money as long as they have those things. And for some reason, not that they ever would, but if they didn't go along or somehow they decide to start sharing Mario and Zelda with Microsoft and Sony, then you might not see anyone buy any more Nintendo consoles. But until that day, which will never happen, yeah, they're always going to sell. Yeah, exactly. So that's my point. If you wanted to really do a comparison, you'd say, okay, let them get those properties. Oh, you won't? Okay. Well, then no. Being obsolete is not their best kept secret or their, secret that's keeping them viable. But yeah, no, more power to them. If you don't have to try to compete and you can work off your first party titles, keep making the best damn first party titles like you always have been.
Yeah, and I mean, at this point it's almost proven that for Nintendo, it comes down to marketing, because you see that with horrible marketing, they can still sell 13 million consoles with the Wii U. You have some good marketing and a good gimmick, you sell 14 million consoles in 10 months. So the Nintendo fanboys will always be there, but if you just make it accessible, that's what it is. Like, the Wii was accessible, completely underpowered. It was just a barely souped up game cube. The Wii U was underpowered, and it was... I think the Wii U, like, it'll be looked back on as the thing that kind of led to the Switch being the Switch, but it was just... it wasn't there yet in design. And then the Switch is just, selling like gangbusters. But yeah, you're right. It's basically been since the Wii that, they stopped just giving a fuck about competing graphically with everyone else.
Yeah, they realized that's not... Their market's never going to be graphics. And that's why their biggest third-party title right now for the Switch is Skyrim, probably, which is a 6-year-old game or more.
Skyrim, Doom... Wolfenstein 2 is going to come out for it this year, I think. So,
but I'm saying, like, Skyrim will, even with those other ones, Skyrim's going to be your biggest, like, third-party title that people would actually give a shit about right now the most. Because, quite honestly, if they do release any third-party titles against Xbox or PlayStation, the people who would buy those games probably going to still buy it for them. They're not going to, like, go only on the Switch.
Yeah, and I mean, it might do a thing at the very worst, like with the Wii U, where the Wii U kind of had, like, ultimate editions of 1 or 2 year old games. Like, the Wii U has a version of Tekken Tag Tournament 2, but it has all the DLC on the disc, so it's basically like a Game of the Year edition of it. Yeah. So I can see it going more that route.
Yeah. So, no, like I said, it's a typical kind of misleading article, but it's interesting, and it's something that if you didn't realize, then you might be more surprised by it, I guess would be the word.
Yeah, it's also Forbes, and it's not like it's gearing itself towards gamers. It's fucking Forbes. It's a business website. So
yeah. So, all right, let us know what you think.